Domestic Peace Corps. And that was all he cared for me to share. Of course, he's mentioned before that he and I share some ties. It turned out that we were both in the same program at the same time at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, and that was the year, as I believe, that Kirk joined that Domestic Peace Corps and began his service, began what has been a lifetime of service to the community. So at this time, I'll give you Kirk Ivey. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for coming. For starters, I would like to share 3 comments. It's been said by many people for many years that Sundays between 10:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. is the most racially segregated time in American life. 2, for all intent and purposes, African Americans are invisible in this valley of the sun. Can anyone name one African American institution that plays a significant role in Phoenix? Can anyone name one African American man, woman, or child who is of public significance in Phoenix? Third, probably some of you heard that there's another stand your ground case in Florida in which a young black male was shot and killed by an adult white male. And I also like to share something I read out of the ASU student newspaper. I go over there occasionally, I have friends on staff and so forth. But there was an incident, I don't know how many of you heard, on Martin Luther King's Day or prior to Martin Luther King's Day over at ASU. And the writer writes, Martin Luther King once said, "There's nothing in the world more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." He made that statement years ago. Yet here we are staring at and dealing with ignorance and stupidity. On Sunday, members of a fraternity held a party in honor of Martin Luther King Day. At the party, there were offensive references to stereotypes of black people. It's 2014, and we are still confronting immense ignorance in a history of oppression. Those were just for reflection, just for thought. Now, I believe everyone has a handout.
And please read along. The home is knowing in secret. Why can't we show you who we are or goals inside of us? Why must we be unfaithful to ourselves, be unfaithful to you? We must unlearn so much that we have learned. So we give a slick version of ourselves so that you can remain comfortable and cozy, so that you can hold on to your mess. And you would never know what burns in our hearts. You would never know the truth. Any thoughts? Nick, you have thoughts about many things. What are your thoughts about the poem?
I find a lot of truth in this poem, Kirk, because I myself have been just that sort of person early in my life and even today.
Anyone else have any thoughts what this poem is about? Yes, sir.
That's where I live. I had breakfast about 2 weeks ago, and I had met my next door neighbor, 85-year-old black lady that is more like 35 years old as far as the way, boy, she's a character, and I say that in the best sense. She's funny, music, what he says, what she says. So I went over to the community dining hall to have lunch. And, the two of us sat, had a nice time, she's a nice lady. And there was one fellow on the other side of the room, this is a place for elderly people, average age about 83. Just stared at us, constant. And there was some entertainment going on the other side of the room, but no, it was not talking to the entertainment, staring at us. And you could almost read it in the fact that this went on so long, like, what in the world is this black guy, lady doing with this white guy? I mean, I couldn't read his mind,
Right.
but boy, there had to be some reason why he stared constantly at us and not the entertainment. So, elderly fellow, I guess just, that has nothing to do with it. It's just that, there's people in the world like that.
Yes, there is. I presented this poem to you
Because the intent when writing it, well, let me give you the story. I went to this, I go to some of these writer conferences sometime, and I was at one, and there was this well-known, very outspoken African-American poet there. And she gave a presentation which didn't reflect who she was at all. And I had known her in the past, so afterwards I went up to her and I said, well, what was that all about? And she said, Kirk, you have to understand who's writing my paycheck. So my response to her, well, was to do this poem. So the poem was really, the intent was honesty. And that it's very difficult when speaking about race in America to be honest. For whatever reason, it's sometimes difficult for me to be honest when I'm speaking about race. One doesn't want to offend anybody. One wants to be well received by others. So it's difficult. But today, I will attempt to be somewhat honest in this presentation. And I want to talk about my life in particular, but also the life of the community of African Americans. And I have to go back to the beginning. Fate, fear, flight, fate. They came in a hush before the sun crawled above the hills, with weapons unknown to us. Father and the other men did what they could, but it was not their day. It was not their day. After the blood no longer bled, Mother told me fathers and the others were brave, but never really had a chance. Never really had a chance. As the future was fast becoming the present, I ran to Mother. She held me, making herself and I one. We thought the marching would never end. I asked Mother where we were going. She didn't know. We had heard those stories. Now we were in one of those stories. And everything we had heard was true. The hunger, the thirst, the whips, the fear, the dying. Once we almost got away, but as with fathers and the others, it was not to be. Mother was beaten so badly, very badly. On that ship where Mother and I were caged with so many others, Mother began whispering about Father in the village and slaves and masters. When we were allowed to have some fresh air, Mother whispered that she heard Father's voice coming from the water. She ran past the guards and threw herself into the water. Father's voice. Mother was chasing Father's voice. Who remembers? Who remembers the terror of the terroristic experience, of the boyish capture, of the foul gross forge, of being bought and sold and bought? Who remembers watching the manhood of your man, of your daddy, of your brother, manhood being ripped from his body? Who remembers watching the womanhood of your woman, of your mother, of your sister, womanhood being shocked into madness? Who remembers the horrors of the endurance, the blood of the endurance, the courage of the endurance, the spirit of the endurance, the perils of the endurance? Who wants to remember? Who wants to remember? My beginnings and ending of who I am starts with my great-grandmother and my mother. They sort of shaped who I am. And my grandmother was born in the 1870s in Virginia, so my grandmother was born in 1913, my mother was born in 1930. So they lived through a very difficult period during American history. Somehow they survived. Now I'm going to speak in particular about my grandmother, who was a domestic maid for 45 years. She worked for the same family. And I must say, she seemed happy. She had steady employment. She had her church, she was very involved in, and she had her family. Of course, I was very young, so I really didn't talk about adult serious things with her. I didn't know her inner thoughts about what she thought about her position in life. But she seemed happy, and I guess she just endured her experience. Now, the other thing I would like to mention about my grandmother is that she loved to travel. So on her domestic maid's salary, she managed to travel around the world. How she did it, I don't know. But I wrote this piece for her in honor of my grandmother. Traveling woman. She loves the whistle of locomoting trains, the magic of iron birds, the calm of seafaring vessels. Traveling woman, always on the go. Saving up pennies, nickels, and dimes from her domestic maid plight to fulfill her womanish dreams, flying across distant skies, rambling about foreign lands, to see, to touch, to hear, to taste. Traveling woman, always on the go. Grandmother. God with her everywhere she went. That Bible was always in her hands. That good to see you, glad to know you smile, rarely left her face. A daughter of Jim Crow's America, living the experience of that sometimes different time. Grandmother, up to the Big Apple, out to the Windy City, motor pooling to the Motor City, traveling woman down to Rio, up to Canada, over to Paris, back to Africa. Traveling woman, always on the go, always smiling, traveling woman. It's my grandmother. Now, my mother's entirely different case. My mother, as I said, she was born in 1930 in the South. And that experience left her extremely bitter. She tells stories that I won't tell to you, but I will read something about it in a minute. But despite her experience of, as she got older, she progressed economically in her life, and she moved into integrated communities. That stain of experience from her early days never left her. And some people find this poem kind of difficult. No, I find it kind of difficult myself sometimes. But it's called Mother Poem number 287. Mother never did get over her segregated American South past. It dominated her hopes and dreams like a tornado leaving its imprint on a great plain small town. That omnipresent esoteric image thing ate up her humanity in so many ways. It occupied nukes of her fears that even she was unaware of, and beat her black eyes into a black blindness. She just couldn't shake her segregated American South past. White folks got everything. Why does God allow white people to treat us like this? White folks ought to be ashamed of themselves. I don't know what God was thinking when he created white people. White folks can do whatever they want to us. Even still, she loved JFK more than MLK, excuse me. And when my long-haired counterculture friends' parents kicked them out, she allowed them to live with us. And her God was definitely white. Her daily twisted American-clad tirades torment my dreams almost every night. What a great country this is. So she just had cataract surgery this past week, so it's been sort of difficult for her, but unfortunately, that's the type of unseen psychological damage that the experience of living in segregated America sort of, left people with. And unfortunately, I know people that just drove completely crazy because they couldn't deal with it. You find many of them walking on the street these days mumbling to themselves. Well, many of them are in places for people who have no mental difficulties. Now, my childhood, I was born in 1956 in Norfolk, Virginia, which is southeastern Virginia. So it was at the beginnings of the civil rights movement. But my childhood was really defined by two defining moments. One was being born into segregated Virginia. And as a kid, I had no consciousness of that. So we had family, church, community, so forth, things were contained in the community. However, as I got older, there were things we couldn't do. For example, we couldn't go to certain playgrounds. We couldn't go to certain stores. You were told not to go to certain parts of town. So I became more conscious of there was something different here going on. That there was different statuses for different people. And I have a few reflections on that also. had these. Here we are. So we lived, when I was small, we lived in the projects, low income, federally built housing. By the time I came, I'm the youngest of five. My natural father and my mother were in the midst of divorcing when I came. So we were poor, and we lived in public housing, which, as I said, we had our little community center there. We had our little playground there. So it wasn't as if one felt that one didn't have what one needs. But it leaves a certain impression on one. And this is sort of my thing about my experience there. I am a red brick poet. I emerged out of white over black, bleeding red bricks, unfree, unequal, segregated American red bricks. I am the black face, the black voice of unfree, unequal, segregated American red bricks. I refuse to pretend to be anything else. Those red bricks taught me how to love, to struggle, to fight, to whisper to the rainbow. I am a red brick poet. Those red bricks taught me how to be a human being. Those red bricks parade in my dreams when their makers misrepresent them. I am a red brick poet. I will bet my today, my tomorrow, that it is impossible for free, brave, democratic America to understand my love affair with those unfree, unequal, segregated American red bricks. I am a red brick poet. And as I said, as I began to grow older, there were other experiences that I had that made me aware of who I was. And this is a reflection of one of those experiences. A brand new pair of shoes. Grandfather was seized by the crazy notion that I needed a brand new pair of shoes for the first day of the new school year. I love my old falling apart shoes. My feet feel like Victoria Falls in them. Grandfather insisted. Grandfather was 70 years old. So downtown we went, downtown into the heart of America. Grandfather and I waited seemingly for 300 years for the clerk to attend to everyone else, then to us. A white kid pointed up to Grandfather. "Listen, boy," he addressed Grandfather. "You niggers got to wait till I get my brand new shoes." I moved to smash the life of this other son of the American South. He was about my size. I was small for 8 years old, but I thought I had a fighting chance. Grandfather knew me. I was his grandson. He was my hero. I looked into his eyes. I saw 300 years in his eyes. Those old falling apart shoes served me well for another year. Grandfather and I never went downtown again. So, as I was saying, as I got older, becoming a parent, that, things were as they were. For the first 6 years, I attended segregated schools. And of course, I said we would conscious that there was a difference between the school that I attended and the other schools. So it was somewhat a very pleasant experience. It was about learning, playing. We did what young kids do. Now the other defining event of my life is that my mother had remarried a military man, and by the time I was in 7th grade, we started traveling as a family. Now, the community I was living in was 99.9% African American in Virginia. We moved to Rhode Island, the naval base in Rhode Island, where the community was 99.9% white. So there was a big contrast. But that was a gift because, one, I had a foundation in African American culture from that earlier period in my life. And the second was that in interacting with other people, I grew comfortable with them. I learned that they are two human beings just like me. So that fear of dealing with something different was erased. In fact, it wasn't even there. I mean, kids are amazing because kids, they relate to people as who they are. They don't have all the stuff that we impose on them as they get older. So, my best friends were white. Some of my girlfriends were white. So it was the development of comfort. Unfortunately, I know African Americans today, for example, who are uncomfortable going to Scottsdale. When I ask them why, they say I'm uncomfortable around white people. And I'm sure that some of you in here would be uncomfortable going to the South Side, because you aren't familiar with it. You lack that context. And that's, where we are here now in America, unfortunately. That fear of each other still exists. And I think we should ask ourselves why. Why is that? So, we're getting a little late here, but let me end. Well, let me just make one comment in reference to that. So, as in Rhode Island, I was exposed to other people who were no different from me, with virtually no difficulty at all. In fact, I'm still very good friends with what I call my high school buddies. I still talk to them. We're different now. Some of them are Republican and rich, but that's okay. We still talk. We can still relate to each other. As I've gotten older, and as I graduated from high school and went to college, in fact, during high school remember this was the late 60s, early 70s, the Vietnam War, hippie movement, the Black Panther movement. America was raging in a certain sense. It was when my social conscience developed. And just even till today, just hearing about or seeing every day as I do my travels, the pain that people are experiencing, the pain that people experience is troublesome. What really bothers me, I can't walk away from what really bothers me. I can't wash it away with sweet, bitter liquor. I can't kill it with beautiful, massive homes, shiny, fast cars, soft, warm furs, huge, sparkling diamonds. What really bothers me lives within my blood, my bone, my heart, my spirit. It is a vivid, invisible force that will not disappear. A disease that laughs, that cures, a mess of stately, sacred customs, a stale and static consciousness. My tears flow involuntarily as a numbness creeps into my body, as many thoughts explode in my head, but they have never chased away what really bothers me. Now that we had the election of Mr. Obama as president, people that I know, everybody was happy and thought things were gonna change overnight, but now that things haven't changed overnight, they are having second thoughts about Mr. Obama and this whole thing, this whole concept of a African American president. And this is sort of my, comment or response to it. In my life, when I was learning how to scrape hair from my face, Ronald Reagan became president of the United States. I was sad. I knew something terrible, something inhumane was about to happen. When the hair on my head was full and lush, George W. Bush became president of the United States. I was sad. I knew something terrible, something inhumane was about to happen. Now that the hair on my head is beginning to turn gray and nappy, Barack Obama has become president of the United States. I was happy. I knew something terrible, something inhumane was about to happen. Thank you.
Kirk was talking to, I recalled an incident about 20 years ago where that taught me not to assume so much about what other people were thinking, and it was actually kind of humorous. That I was walking down the street hand in hand, the streets of Key West, hand in hand with a friend who was a Jamaican and very short. She couldn't have been even 5 feet. And I noticed people looking at us, and so I said jokingly, people are staring at us because you're so short. And I expected her to come back and say, no, they're staring at us because you're so white. And instead she said, they're staring at us because we're the only heterosexual couple on the street. So anyway, don't take too much for granted. Please rise as you're willing and able, and join in our closing hymn, that This Little Light of Mine, number 118. As we extinguish our chalice, please join me in reading our mission statement as a demonstration of our fellowship, our support for one another, and our commitment to the wider community. We agree to provide a safe place to celebrate diversity, draw inspiration for living better lives, foster social and environmental justice, and compassionately support each other in our spiritual searches. Thank you to our musician, Joanne Cleland, to Elizabeth Skinner and Julie Tennant, our greeters, to Bernie Armstrong for our chalice lighters, and of course to Kirk Ivey. And all jokes aside, such a serious discussion and such an open revelation of yourself, Kirk, requires us to all leave with a sense that we should examine ourselves. We'll close our service with these words that were chosen by Kirk from writer and poet Paul Robeson at number 462. I shall take my voice wherever there are those who want to hear the melody of freedom or the words that might inspire hope and courage in the face of despair and fear. My weapons are peaceful, for it is only by peace that peace can be attained. The song of freedom must prevail.